All right, everybody, welcome back to Dom DeMarco's Pizzeria and Wine Bar here on the patio for the Jim Feist Pro Football Handicapping Show. My name is Tommy Canale. I'll be the host of the show. And Jim, you know, we've been doing this for a while, and Albert, you know, he's a brainiac here. He comes up with two great lines to start the show. One is, our panel consists of all sharps and no squares, which I like, but this one's better. Our audience consists of bettors from Yale to jail. So those are compliments to Albert Scallion. Once again, I'm Tommy Canale. This is Jim Feist. You ready for Christmas?
I'm ready, but I'll tell you what. When you look around the audience that we've had here for this is I think our 10th show.
Yeah, something like that.
The people in the audience have as much or more experience and talent as we do up here on this panel. I'm not speaking for the gentleman next to me, but for myself. That we could be asking them questions because there's a lot of knowledge that walks into this building. For sure. We have a great panel today. Let me introduce them, and then we have a lot of stuff to get to. First, I should call him a Hall of Famer. He has more than 25 years experience in the industry. He's retired head of the Westgate Sportsbook. If you're not familiar with that, you're watching this from somewhere else. That is the Superbook that hosts the Super Contest, which is recognized as the most prestigious pro football handicapping contest, and that is Jay Kornegay. Jay, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Tommy.
Give it up for Jay. And next to him, a gentleman who has over 40 years, has been investing in select sporting events with bottom line profitability as a result. Lou Finnochiaro. Lou, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, guys. Pleased to be here.
He's lying. He's not that old.
He's not that old. None of us are that old. Let me start here with you, because we have talked about this. We're 3 weeks till playoffs, and believe it or not, we're less than 2 months to the Super Bowl. I know that kind of sounds crazy, but that's where we are in the season. We have talked for many weeks about these injuries that continue to pile up on the Detroit Lions, and once again, the running back David Montgomery suffered an MCL. And what they have left on their schedule is at Chicago this week. They're a 6.5-point favorite there. Then they're going to go to the 49ers, and they finish with Minnesota. Is this injury after injury, is it too much for them to overcome? Or are they still, in your opinion, a favorite to get to the Super Bowl?
Well, I think they'll get to the Super Bowl. I think they'll get to the, I know they're going to get to the playoffs. At some point, these injuries are going to catch up to them, because you're going to have to stop teams, and they're giving up a lot of points. Now, they're not going up against a team this week that has the potential to score a lot of points, but they did play a couple weeks ago, albeit that Detroit was taking them lightly at that time. I don't believe they're going to take them lightly this week, because they're coming off a loss. They're in desperation to try to stay ahead of Philadelphia for that #1 seed, and the Vikings, who are right there as well, and I keep saying this, the Packers, because they're right there, and they're a very tough division, and you really can't take it light, but they have a very aggressive, well, I guess aggressive isn't even enough to say about Dan Campbell. He's more than aggressive, but he's going to bring this team back, and I think they're going to come with a lot of energy and passion in this game against a very dysfunctional Chicago Bears team who's changed the coach, has a new quarterback that holds the ball a little too long. He doesn't do very well on his first reads, and he doesn't do very well on his second reads. So there's a lot. There was a big question about him in college, that people that know college ball, which I don't follow college ball as much, they said that they wondered about his maturity. Not about his arm talent or his overall talent, but his maturity. I'm not quite sure
He's
if that
matured
was
yet.
true or not. I don't know the young man, but he does look like he has a few flaws that needs coaching. He needs coaching. But all these kids come out of college, they need coaching. They're not pro ready, even if they play in the pro system. They need coaching, and it takes time to get there.
Before I ask Lou about what his thoughts are in the game, Jay, from your perspective, from the other side of the desk, so to speak, what are you seeing in this game?
Well, I think it's a good thing to see the Bears on the schedule for the Lions, because it's just what the doctor ordered for the Lions. I mean, Chicago is a team that just finds ways to give up games, and lately, you know, they were living with their defense early part of the year, but now that's been run down because their offense can't stay on the field too long. So this is exactly what the Lions needed here. We're going to see, Tommy, what we normally see at the Lions games, despite their loss last week against the Bills, and that's going to be a lot of teasers, a lot of parlays, even a lot of straight bets on the Lions, despite their loss. I mean, nobody wants to bet the Bears, and we understand that. We haven't seen any sharp money on this game so far. We're all very well aware of all the injuries that are mounting up for the Lions. Some of them are coming back, especially on the defensive side, even though they're not fully 100%. I expect the Lions to rebound here, mainly because the team that they're playing.
Jay, how much did the injury to Montgomery move this line?
Not too much. I mean, the Lions were very fortunate to have a two-headed monster back there. Now, I think Gibbs is more than capable of handling the workload, but let's not, Craig Reynolds, who's the backup, he's going to be the short, yardage guy. I think he's very capable. He's not Montgomery, but the Lions are very fortunate to have pretty much an all-pro running back that is going to take over and handle most of the running duties. So they're in good shape there.
Lou, do you like this game at all?
I try and stay to playoff type games, and so I'm looking for two teams competing for something. It's hard for me to effectively handicap the Bears, but I'll say this. Division hatred, these guys have been playing since Lucci and Butkus in the 60s, and I remember those games. And in a division game with hatred like this, you can throw those point spreads out. This is a Bears or nothing for me because you got to be half whack. The reason I'm not interested in the game is because the Bears really don't qualify, and I can't effectively monitor how they're going to show up, who they're going to test, who they're going to play, what they'll be looking at. I can trust Detroit is focused here. I do notice 48.5 was the look-ahead line at the Westgate a week ago. Then on Monday went to 46.5. Now we're looking at 48 again. I'm citing Westgate lines. And so that trickle back up seems to indicate a little bit of confidence. I don't know in who, maybe in Detroit, but I would be interested in an under here simply because I think this thing could be a little bit ugly. Detroit tries to get out, get a lead, protect themselves, and go home.
Lou, Ed, and Jay, with the league that has 10 teams that are, I think it's about 10 teams that are totally eliminated from playoffs or damn close to being eliminated. We have a top and a bottom with very little in the middle this year. The parity in the NFL is about as bad as it's been for decades. Do you find that more difficult to handicap games? I know you want to look for two teams that are battling for something, but even that's tough when you have a couple teams that are already clinched and you don't know what they're going to bring to the table. Is this more difficult to handicap when you have this kind of situation?
Well, I'll go first here, but look at the season here. From a bookmaker's perspective, we had a really good September, and that's where we saw parity at its best. And then all of a sudden, October shows up, and parity went on vacation. And we haven't seen parity in a while. The last couple of weeks been okay, but I'm going to tell you, this has been one of the, and I'm not looking for sympathy out there. I know people are like, oh gosh, the books are crying. I'm like, no, I'm just telling you exactly what's happening out there. And that is, parity went out the window for about 6 weeks there, and we had one of the worst Octobers ever. It might have been the worst October since I've been in the business, and I've been in the business since '87. And I'm telling you that we have never, we actually lost, okay? And that's before expenses, Jim. Okay? And again, this is what happened. All of a sudden, there was a separation between the top teams and the rest of the, the field, and also the bad teams continued to get worse. And the public had just really wiped the floor with us. Like I said, the last couple of weeks have been okay for the bookmakers, but it's been very, very tough. You asked if this has been very difficult. No, I mean, we're sticking to our guns. We know the history tells us that it's going to be, things will change and things will even out. And the bookmakers are still waiting for that.
Louis, you said you're looking for a game that may have some implications. Before I go to Philadelphia, you had a statement victory over the Steelers. Let's look at Pittsburgh and Baltimore. Is this a game that makes of interest to you with two teams that are basically fighting for everything right now?
You're going to laugh me out of the room if I say no, right? This is exactly the game that I want to handicap. And I want to handicap it because I want to get myself prepared for what I'm going to be doing in January when these lines are just razor tight, and I want to get my mind in practice to that. That being said, you picked another old school guys like me love these division games. Pittsburgh, Baltimore. Will I give Pittsburgh advantage over Baltimore with the receiver out, Pickens? Maybe not. It's going to be tougher. What that means to me, tighter. I am going to give Tomlin an edge over Harbaugh. Harbaugh can be a little bit erratic, and his team can be a little flaky sometimes in crunch time, starting with quarterback. So I look for Pittsburgh to keep this close and keep it tight. I'm holding out hope that we'll get to a 7. Don't know if it's going to get there, but in a division hatred game like this, I see the look-ahead line a week ago was 5, now 6. I'm seeing some 6.5s. And for an impatient Italian to be patient is tough, but that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be patient.
Jim, do you like this game?
Well, natural for me is to go with Tomlin, Pittsburgh, all of that. I mean, the crazy thing about this is Jackson Lamar has not, I'm not going to say ever, but traditionally when he gets in a big game, he doesn't produce at the level he does or is expected to produce. I don't know what it is. It's in his head, too much. It's a psychological issue. And I mean, I played some competitive things as well, and you can get yourself psyched out about an opponent, and you just don't come to the table with everything you got. He has not come to the table in big events, and I don't know what the number is. I don't have it exactly, but I believe
last time I looked, it was 6.5.
Well, I'm not talking about that number.
Okay.
I'm talking about the Steelers have beaten this team like a drum. And the games are always close. And now you're talking about 6.5 and maybe 7. And you talked about the wide receiver. There is some word, I talked to some people this morning, that he may make it to the field. Now, how long he could play if he gets there, and how effective he'll be if he gets there, he's got a hamstring, and I know, I know a lot of people who have hamstrings. You can feel okay, and then one play, you try to stretch it out, and it pops again.
Yeah.
And it's a dangerous situation. So I lead Pittsburgh. I would like to know who's playing before I make any bet on it, but I'm going to probably be on the dog for either a small bet or a bigger one.
You brought up Lamar Jackson. There are guys, professional, college, high school, that just can't show up for big moments. For whatever it is, they get themselves, either their adrenaline's going too much, they don't know how to handle it, they have nerves that set in, there's a lot of expectations, and the higher expectations, sometimes these athletes, regardless if they're amateur or professional, cannot answer that bell inside. Lou, you got something on that?
What I would like to say is he's plenty competitive. He's surely a scrapper. What he isn't is a natural pocket passer. When that team gets down, they press, and he can't play from that typology. He's not a drop back, throw down the field, catch up quarterback. If they got the game working for them, they're in the lead, they're handing off to that big mule Henry, and he can play his games. But when they're behind, we saw it against San Diego at home 3-4 years ago in the playoffs, and it hasn't changed. I think he is not a drop back quarterback.
We just got a note that no Pickens 100% out.
There you go. That's from what I call the FedEx guy, the guy that just delivers picks after pick. From Mike Scally, who's sitting off to the left of us here. He'll be on the show after the Super Bowl. Let's talk Eagles. Statement victory over the Steelers last week. They're at Washington. I think it's up to 3.5, opened at 3. And you talked about them battling with Detroit. If you look at the schedules, I said Detroit is at Chicago, then they go the 49ers, who it looks like they may have just thrown in the towel. Then they come home from Minnesota, which is probably going to be the biggest game left on their schedule. But the Eagles are going to Washington. Then they come home for Dallas and the Giants. I mean, it looks like the path, if you're looking comparison for me, would be the Eagles. You agree or not agree?
Are you asking me?
I'm asking you.
Well, first of all, let's skip to the second point there. Dallas, I don't know what Dallas is doing, but all of a sudden, and I know that they haven't played the greatest opponents lately, but they actually been playing pretty good, and they blew the game against the Bengals a couple weeks ago. If they'd have won that game, it would be 4 straight wins, and that builds a lot of confidence with the team. And it is a big rivalry, Dallas against Philadelphia, and Dallas knows they're not going anywhere. Well, I guess they still have, a lot of people still have an outside chance, but they're going to come to play that game. The problem with Philadelphia is they're devastating on the ground. They're the best running team in football, and even though they have a tendency to start out slow, they don't always score well in the first half. Last week they came out against Pittsburgh and Hurts threw the ball around and he was pretty effective. When you look at this team right now, I would have to rate them as the highest rated team in football at this moment, even above Buffalo, because Buffalo might have a problem stopping a running game like this team has if they had to meet.
Jay, are you seeing a lot of money on Philadelphia for Super Bowl?
Yeah, pretty consistently throughout the entire year. We've seen money on the Eagles as they separated themselves. You know, the Lions, it was clearly the Lions and the Eagles show in the NFC. You know, I know people talk about Green Bay, talk about Minnesota, but personally I think there's a huge gap between those top 2 and the rest of the teams in the NFC. But, I mean, futures-wise, you can guarantee those top teams that have separated themselves, including the 5 teams over on the AFC side, there's a lot of tickets on them, Tommy. I can't say there's been a lot of big plays on them, but the ticket count is, enormous on these top contenders.
What about this week's game with Philadelphia going to Washington?
You know, I agree with Jim there. I mean, when you can run the ball like Philadelphia does, and as I just said, I know there's a big gap there between those top 2 teams and the rest of the field, and I haven't even mentioned Washington here. This is their last big game. Washington's probably maybe 1 or 2 drafts away from being a real true contender. Right now, I don't see that. I think the way that Philadelphia can run the ball, they should be able to do that in Washington.
Lou, let me throw something over to you. Let's talk about Green Bay. Monday they got New Orleans, huge spread, 14. What they have left is at Minnesota versus Chicago. I've heard people talk about Green Bay's the sleeper team. Better watch out for Green Bay. Detroit's banged up. There's everything reason on why people that are huge, I guess, Packer fans want to say the Packers have a chance to win this division. What are your thoughts on the Packers?
My thoughts are that the Packers and the Vikings are not as far off of Detroit and Philly as Jay believes. I think the easiest coaching job in the NFL is in Green Bay and Minnesota. Minnesota's what, 10-2, real quiet, and nobody even knows it. Minnesota's a real team with a real defense, and they can get over on their lack of running game. Even though that running back is talented, a little more fleet-footed, I think I'm very bullish on Minnesota. You asked about Green Bay. New Orleans is decimated with injuries. There's no Alvin Kamara running back. He will not be playing this week. They surely give Green Bay the edge here, but while all eyes are on Green Bay, Detroit, and Philly, I'm pretty bullish on Minnesota myself.
You like Minnesota to pull this division out?
Yes, I like Minnesota in the NFC as well. Coming out from deep into nowhere, 10-2. I mean, all they can do is play who they put in front of them.
You like this Minnesota, Jim? You said you're on Detroit, so.
Well, I'm on Detroit against the Bears.
Okay.
I'm not saying I'm on Detroit against Minnesota. They're 2 different animals. The Packers are healthier than Detroit. Minnesota is healthier than Detroit. It's going to come down to what conditions are prevalent at the time they meet. Today, against the Bears, yes, I'm on Detroit.
I mean, I'm looking at this division. You got the Lions has Minnesota in the last week of the season, and the next week, Green Bay and Minnesota are going to play in Minnesota. So that's a huge game. You're looking for a game for implications? Lou, there you got it. Another week, Green Bay going to Minnesota. This division's going to get sorted out here pretty quick. well, for sure, if not the last week, it could be decided this week and next week.
Minnesota's -1 in that game, according to Jay's outfit, the Westgate, and the total 49. I'm going to hold on there because there could be some Green Bay love, and I think I'll just sit back, maybe get a 1.
All right. Jay, let me go to you on something. We talked about this before we started. The injury to Mahomes' ankle, it's been kept quiet. It sounds like he's going to play. This has been a 6-point swing. It opened up as a 2.5 favorite for Houston, and now it's a 3.5 point favorite for Kansas City. What are you seeing on the book side of all this?
Just headaches. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, some of these injury reports and how these coaches and these organizations report them. It sounds like he's going to play, but obviously, I mean, the movement really tells the story. All of a sudden, the Chiefs are getting +2.5. Now they're favored by 3.5. It looks like he's going to give it a go. I don't know why, but it's frustrating as a bookmaker trying to figure out, because we respect all the guys out there. You guys know we've run an operation for years respecting the sharp play out there, and we take the sharp play. And sometimes they get this information before we do, and sometimes we get this information before they do. But it's all good. I can tell you by the way, or the type of play that we have seen come in over the last few days, it does look like he's going to play, and that number's probably going to go up a little bit more once that's confirmed. But it is a headache for us to keep track of all the information.
For you, Jim, I know we talked Kansas City almost every week, but did you get on this before it switched 6 points?
I did. I did take Kansas City +3.
Okay.
Not at our place.
No, but I know somebody else that did that, got in a little trouble doing it too, because I guess the place didn't like the fact that he did it. But I'm not going to mention names. I don't understand that. Post the line on the board and you take a bet. Why do you're not happy somebody made the bet? Why put the line on the damn board?
Well,
I don't get it.
I don't know what you're talking about.
It's not you.
Of
course
okay.
not you. It wasn't you. And I'm not going to say who, but I didn't understand it when I heard the story, and in any case, I took 3 with Kansas City, and it switched off to the other side now with the Mahomes news, the 3.5. So you get like a 7-point move in this game. Now, Mahomes is probably not. No, Mahomes will not be 100%. They're getting Hollywood Brown back. They got Pacheco in the backfield. I would expect that the game plan for Mahomes will be do everything you can to not make him have to be mobile. So, which means they're going to have dump off passes to the backs, maybe cut some of the routes for the wide receivers short, and not get him in a situation where A, he gets hit, B, he has to run around with an ankle. I don't know if it's a high ankle sprain or just an ankle sprain. I know one is much worse than the other. So what I'm saying in that is I would expect this game to be an underbet. Houston has had a fall off. Stroud is having a regression from his first year. They're not as good offensively, putting up points. Their defense has had some deficiencies. I would expect this to be an underplay more than any side play. Now, I do like my 3. I'm not getting off my +3. Okay, so I'm not going to do that. But as far as a play to give out to somebody right now, I just say bet it under.
I'm going to follow up on that +3 story after the show.
Okay.
Because I agree with you. If you hang a number, we take a bet.
I'll tell you in private who
Yeah,
it was.
okay.
I will.
Lou, you said you've been trying to be a patient Italian, but were you an impatient Italian as you get on this early too?
I was, and I just on Monday I did a little podcast show, and at that point in time, Kansas City money line, I believe it was I got 115, but that's what it was on Monday. I suggested that we're in the gambling business, right?
We
I
are?
didn't
We
know.
are? I didn't know that.
I can tell you that I had a strong opinion that Mahomes would play. Kansas City is the way they're playing and the way Buffalo's right on their tail. There is no question that Mahomes is going to play. We always hear you got to protect athlete against himself. Mahomes is playing, and I knew it Monday, and I bet it Monday on the money line. Now, can that go backwards? Yes. Could have easily gone the other way. If he's not playing, the line gets away from me, and I'm a sitting duck. But this is gambling. This is what we do, and I thought a good position at the time was Kansas City money line.
As Albert Scally had said, the smartest bettors from Yale to jail. That's what this whole audience is. This panel is, you know, all sharps and no squares. Let's talk a little bit about tonight's game. The Broncos, Jim, the defense has been essential to turning this team around. They forced 5 turnovers against Indianapolis last week. They're at the Chargers tonight. I believe that line's now moved from 3 to 2.5.
It has.
Do you like the game?
Yes and no.
Well, let me back up for you before you go there. Are you on the Denver bandwagon yet?
No.
Okay.
Why? Because I do believe that rookie quarterbacks have a tendency to have regression. And they have, in college, they played against a lot of good athletes and a lot of very inferior athletes that they can get away with some things. They're now into their 13th, 14th, 15th, I think 14th game. They've been hit by a lot of big, strong guys. A lot of sacks, a lot of roughing up, you know. And he threw 3 interceptions last week. Now he's on the road against a previously good defense. Now they gave up a 40-bagger to Tampa Bay last week.
They did.
I don't know what the hell happened there and how that fell apart, but I do expect, that's a Jim Harbaugh coach team. There's not too many people better at coaching than Jim Harbaugh. So I think their defense is going to come to play. How much Herbert is going to be allowed to do, it's kind of like Mahomes. Herbert has a swollen ankle on one leg and the other ankle is hurt. He's not going to be that mobile. He hasn't passed for a lot of yards all year long, even when he was healthy. They have deficiencies on defense. They have deficiencies on offense. This is not the same Charger roster that was there a year ago before Harbaugh got there. So this is a good team, a well-coached team, but they have injuries. As far as the other side is concerned, yes, Denver has a good defense. They should have lost the game to the Colts last week. I don't know what the hell they were doing. Guy drops the ball on the 1-inch line, gives up a touch. They should have never won that game. Now, I was happy because I did cover with Denver. I had the wrong side, but I won. It was one of the few sides I won last week. Sunday wasn't that good, guys. But I did win that. I was happy to win it. But I don't know what's going to happen. You're trying to predict these young kids that come out of college first year, start to make mistakes. Maybe they start reading their press clippings. Oh yeah, you know, all that stuff. Rookie of the year honors. They're young. They're 20 years, 22 years old. I don't know what happens here, but I bet the under because I do feel both coaches are going to try to cover up for the mistakes of Nix and the injury of Herbert. I think you're going to see a conservative game plan.
Let me get Jay's opinion, then Lou, I want to hear your opinion on the game. Jay, go ahead.
Well, this game, I mean, we've seen some sharp play. Actually, the threes that disappeared earlier in the week were all sharp plays. Yesterday, if you looked at this total, it was 42 across the board. And Jim, don't tell me you had 42.5 or 43. You'll make me.
Did
you get a number?
I shop a little bit.
Okay, all right.
But
But
locally and otherwise.
yeah, and I agree with this move. So as far as the total dropping, because you wake up this morning, everything's 41, a couple of 41.5s out there, but all the 42s were disappeared, and I agree with that. That despite what's happened recently, and I agree with Jim. I'm not sure what happened to the Chargers defense last week, but they do have a very strong defense. Broncos have a very vanilla offense. However, their defense is pretty solid. And I agree with you once again. I think they should have lost that game against the Colts last week. They didn't play very well. He threw 3 picks, and their defense wasn't good the last 2 games. However, because Herbert is struggling with his health, his ankle, he's only got 13 yards rushing in the last 3 weeks. And prior to that, he said, this team's a lot better when I run, and he hasn't been able to run over the last 3 weeks because of this ankle. So I favor the under in this game.
Lou?
Very little to add. I like the under. Liked it on Monday. I'm trying to play totals on Mondays. if I can, and here's heresy. Everybody cover your ears before you laugh at me. I love teasing totals in the NFL. I teased this under 48. They say never to do it. Why's the tool there then? I use that tool and I use it a lot.
I want to get everybody's opinion on this, and Jim, I'm going to start with you.
That's interesting, Lou, because I know you're a winning player, and obviously if you do that, it has to be a winning EV for you.
It's usually late October, November. We haven't had weather games this year, so I've been squelched in the ability to do it. I'm looking at those weather games. I mean, you got to be a genius to know it's going to be cold and windy in Cleveland or Buffalo on Sunday.
I don't think so.
And so those are the games I'm charting. And
I have
good.
relatives that live in Cleveland. It was 2 degrees last night. Yeah.
Wind is really what I'm looking
Of course,
for more
yeah.
than anything, but the cold never hurts, and a little rain.
Before I get into a couple more games, I want to get Jim, your opinion on this, because I'll tell you mine after you give me yours. How is Devondre Campbell still playing in the NFL after he basically quit and refused to go in the game last week?
Well, I don't know that he's going to be playing in the NFL for that team, because if I'm the head coach, of course you have an owner too.
Correct.
You can't just do what you want to do. You have an owner and a general manager that make shots. He wouldn't play for me.
Me neither. No.
It's like having a guy in a foxhole in a war, and he decides, well, I'm going to get the hell out of here, and you're on your own. I don't think we do that.
Here's the thing for me. He showed his shining colors. I mean, if he's done it once, he'll probably do it again. So if he goes to another team and this situation happens, he'll probably say, I'm not going in. Jay, you got any thoughts on this?
I certainly wouldn't want him on my team.
No.
You know, if you have someone like that, even in running a sports book, you know, you ask the guy to go out there and, you know, handle the line, which is a struggle sometimes because you have all these guys coming at you, a lot of things going on in the line. I'd rather sit in the back and watch the lines move, and you ask him to go out in the line and he refuses. I mean, he's gone. I mean, he's going to end up with another team.
Right.
But I certainly wouldn't be, if I was a GM, I wouldn't be looking that way.
Yeah, for sure. Lou, let me throw a game at you. Arizona's got playoff hopes alive for sure. They're at Carolina. The line, I think, has gone from 4 to 5. Have you been on the Cardinals this year? Do you like the Cardinals' chances to make the playoffs? What are your thoughts on this?
No bigger critical component to the young quarterback at Arizona than me for a couple of years. In the middle of last year, that changed because the young man had been forced away from football. I think he realized how much he needed it, how much he missed it. He came back with a different attitude, one of a leader as opposed one of a taker. I like the young coach. I see the team playing for him. Yes, I was with the Cardinals in early games. This is maybe a game that I don't think I can be with them, however. I had last week right, but if anything, I would lean to Carolina here. They haven't quit. And I'm not saying that Arizona has, but their history going East Coast for early games hasn't been stellar, and so not a game that's really on my radar. But kudos to Arizona; they are playing for that coach.
Jim, are you on this game?
Well, let's go back to last week.
Okay, let's go.
The Panthers were a favorite last week, and I think it had been like 33 or 34 games in a row they were an underdog, and they switched to being the favorite. And it's one thing to being the chaser and being the chasee, and there's something expected about somebody that's favored. So psychologically, I don't know why that works, but it does work. When a team is dog all the time, 30-some games in a row and they're the favorite, they never showed up. And Dallas just wiped the field with them. Now they're back to being an underdog. And you got Carolina going on the road playing, Cardinals, excuse me. The Cardinals playing on the road. He's got his ups and downs as well. I'm not laying the points. If I'm playing the game, I'm playing the dog because they're back in a role that they had been playing very well at. And I don't have any money on it, but that's the way I kind of look at it.
Jay, Jim just brought up a good point about Carolina going from a dog to a favorite back to a dog. Can you expand on that a little bit?
I know what you're saying. That's exactly what it is. I'm not sure how it works, but psychologically, it's all of a sudden you've been this underdog all the time, and then all of a sudden you're the favorite. And believe me, nowadays most of those guys know it. You know, they're the favorite. You're the favorite this week. What do you think? You know, and somehow it just, in most cases, I don't have any documentation on this, but in most cases, in that scenario, those teams don't perform very well. I would expect this team to bounce back. I'm never a big fan of a West Coast team going to the East Coast. I try to stay away from that as much as I can. But if I were to play it at Jim, I would play the home
Got
dog.
over here? All right. And then we're going to do one more game, then we'll ask for some questions. You've been liking Baker Mayfield all year long. I've told you I'm a Tampa fan. I thought they were going to go and get their ass kicked last week, and they completely proved me wrong because they never do well coming to the West Coast. And they just exploded the second half against the Chargers and won that game. Now they're going to go to Dallas, laying 4 last time I looked. Are you on this game, and are you still a Baker Mayfield fan?
Well, I'm a Baker Mayfield fan because of the tenacity that he has. He doesn't quit. And this is a kid that came out of college, #1 draft choice, went to Cleveland. Of course, Cleveland has a way of ruining everybody. But, excuse me, Cleveland, I hate to pick on you, but it's true. You know, and then he plays a couple games for the Rams under McVay. Played pretty good there. Now he's down with a different situation in Florida. He's obviously more matured than he was when he was in Cleveland doing all the progressive commercials every week, which he looked like a pretty good actor actually. But they you know, like I said, you got to throw that out because it's Cleveland. But he is playing with tenacity and effort, and he doesn't quit, and you can beat him up, and he goes back on the field and does more. The problem is, this is a tough situation. You're on the West Coast, you can do a 40 burger, everybody's looking at you now. The line goes up, there are 4 something.
4.
And their favorite Dallas has been playing better. Do I like Tampa? Yes. Do I feel comfortable laying points there? No, I don't. But I could see if that offense is that efficient, and you know Dallas is not going to play conservative, they have no reason to, I'd probably have to look at the total to go or over.
Lou, your thoughts on this game? Tampa Bay is definitely in a dogfight for the conference and for the playoffs. So what's your thoughts on this game?
Well, we're big Tampa fans at plus 340 to win the division from the beginning of the year, so this is not unexpected. I like the coach, I like the team, I like the fact they were there last year. I love when a team feels disrespected, and this team feels disrespected. Everybody just awarded Atlanta the division over them, and that's not sat well with this team at all. I like them here in Dallas, but there's no side here. This is all about the total. And I'm looking at numbers that are looking like 48 when I thought I saw maybe even a 49 earlier in the week, but 48 is plenty fine, 47.5 better. 50% of the bets are on the over, 66% of the money's on the over. That's a good indicator for me of maybe some early wise action, at least larger action, and part of it is mine.
Jay?
Well, I saw that there's a book offering 3.5 out there, and the rest are just 4. But I really do respect that book, and I agree with Jim. First of all, about Mayfield, I just love rooting for that guy.
I'm glad he's on my team.
Sometimes I have money on him, sometimes I don't have money on him. This week, because I think it's a terrible spot. I really do. I think going to LA and then coming here to Dallas, it's just a tough spot. And Cooper Rush finally showed something last week. I think that was the best game that he's ever had as a pro football player, and I think that that's going to continue. I think there's a little bit of mojo there, and taking 4 points at home, I'm more comfortable with that than sitting there laying 4 points in a spot that you are traveling all across the country. So I'll take the home dog here at +4.
Any questions from the audience? Anybody got a question? Yes, over here, go ahead.
Question, the Jets have been nothing but frustrating all year. 3-point dogs at home for the Rams. It's a weird, I didn't expect 3, given what the Jets have shown for the majority of the year. And the Rams are 1 Seahawks loss and 1 Jets victory away from being first in the NFC West. Jared Verse looks like a defensive rookie of the year to me. What freak is there why would the Rams just went to a shootout against the Bills, and then they have to slog fest against the Niners. Jets, just the three maybe a little bit of insight.
Jim, you want to take this?
Yeah. First of all, it's an indoor team going east, which is not a good thing going east and playing early. Aaron Rodgers has not had a great year, but if you look at the last 2 games, he has looked very sharp. And there's nobody's ever going to question his ability. He has the ability. If he comes to play and he's ready and he's in the meetings and he goes through the practices, et cetera, and he's ready to play, he's dangerous. And the Rams are a good team. They're not a great team. You can beat them. And Rodgers, and they have the wide receivers, I mean, they can be dangerous. I'm talking about the Jets. They can be dangerous. That is not a spot I'd lay the points on the road. It's just not a good spot for them after what you just said they've been through. Yeah, I like McVay. I mean, you basically don't have much of a coaching staff on the Jets. You got Aaron Rodgers as the coach, I guess. But it's a dangerous spot for the Rams. I think easily they could lose that game. I have not bet it, but when you look at the metrics of the game, it's not a bad spot for the Jets to finish the season off with a couple victories. We don't know what Aaron Rodgers is going to do long term. Is he going to come back next year? He has a contract and he makes a lot of money, and God knows he can throw the ball better than anybody. And if he's healthy and he works at it, he's a dangerous guy. They need help. They need coaching. They need some defensive help, et cetera, But this is not a great spot for the Rams.
Any other questions out there? Yes, right here.
Knowing that the Chiefs have been beat up week in, week out with the media because they've been lucky, the fact that they win but they do not cover, do you agree with me that they are going to the Super Bowl based on the fact they are going to be seeded 1, they are going to have a first round bye, they're going to play a weak sister in the second round, they basically have to win 1 game at home, knowing last year they went on the road and still got into and won the Super Bowl, knowing that they're proven with Mahomes and Reed. Agree or disagree with me that the Chiefs are going back to the big dance?
The question that has been presented is from the audience. The gentleman wants to know, do you agree or disagree? He thinks the Chiefs are going back to the Super Bowl for 3 straight years.
I don't agree it's a lock. I think they have a 50-50 chance of getting there. The problem is they have holes. They have not been efficient offensively. They haven't been able to push. They haven't been able to score enough points. They did go to Buffalo. They played a very reasonable game. They were in the game. They did lose it at the end. That's a tiebreaker. If they would happen to, I mean, they could easily drop off a little bit and lose that position and have to play in Buffalo again. Buffalo would be the favorite in that game. So it's a 50-50. I don't know how you feel, Jay.
You know, last year, I lost so much money betting against the Chiefs. You know, and I if you remember, they won in similar fashion. You know, they weren't blowing people out. They were getting by, making the plays when they needed to. Mahomes was just incredible in crucial situations. And now he's got this high ankle sprain. You know, he might not be 100%, the rest of the way. But I know what you're saying. If they can hold on to home field, that will, you can make a case for them getting back there. But if they have to go on the road, I just don't see it. I think that the likes of Baltimore will be there. Pittsburgh, you got
Buffalo.
Buffalo. Well, Buffalo's the big one. Yeah, that's the big elephant, right? And I personally think it's Buffalo's year. I could not financially support Chiefs at this point in time.
Jay, is there a lot of tickets on Kansas City for a 3-peat?
Yes, absolutely. It's one of the more popular teams out there. Even before the Mahomes era, it was always the team that had a lot of fans. Their fan base is tremendous, and now that they've enjoyed success over recent years, that ticket count on the Chiefs hasn't slowed down.
Lou.
Buffalo plays New England, the Jets, New England to finish the season. The Chiefs play the Texans, the Steelers, and the Broncos. if the Chiefs get the number one seed, then I think they're going to be hard to beat. I don't think they're getting the number one seed, and for that reason, I lean to Buffalo. Just one man's game.
We got a couple questions. Ray, you were up first. Go ahead.
Yeah, I got a question. I really get you. We have many years at the book, so this is what I got open right now. I got plus 2,780 on a two-teamer, Buffalo and Oregon to win it all, and then I have plus 2,160 on Philly and Buffalo to win the conference. Right now, to protect myself, I think I might take early Patrick Mahomes, Sam Darnold, and Jared Goff, sprinkle an equal proportion of blueberries on each pancake to win Super Bowl MVP to protect myself on the back end, because they usually give that award to the quarterback. And if it does happen to those three teams, besides my terrific two that I picked out, I believe that's where the award shall go. From your years in the book, do you think that's the best way to protect myself at this point with the MVP on the spot?
That's a tough call, really. That's an interesting thought to go that deep into, these parlaying futures, which has become a thing now, right, across the country, and now you see it here in Las Vegas. We just recently started offering those type of wagers because they are very difficult to book, because you can't really get it based off the software. You can't really get an idea how much liability you have if these two teams were to show up.
Right.
So,
Only Caesars took my bet on that. Was like the parlay bet. MGM wouldn't let me do it on the app, but I couldn't believe it when I saw it. I had to grab it when I saw plus 2,700.
I think your thought process is pretty solid. I don't know, Lou. You might have a different opinion.
If I mean, with those kinds of prices, where are you going to get those prices? And so
Right.
I read you loud and clear.
8,500 pays $262,000.
I like your thinking.
Oh my, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
That's just the one. That's not the other one. So I got to offset it with these MVPs, I believe. That's
We know where the party's going to be after the season's over.
Tom DeMarco's. For the good
All
times
right.
roll, baby.
you're talking about $750,000.
That's why I said we know where the party's at.
We won't spend it all.
There's going to be a lot of handbags coming soon. What's your question over there?
I got a question for Jay.
For Jay.
How can a guy that makes the line have an opinion?
Why not?
Trump does it.
How could you say the game is 3, but yet I like the Jets? So
Well,
why
we got to
would-
go. Yeah.
Why would you make the game 3?
Well, I don't control all the lines.
No,
I
but
can control certain lines,
You make
but
the
we all
line.
have opinions. If a bookmaker were to tell you I don't have an opinion, I'm going to tell you
How can
that's
have
just
an
a plain.
opinion? How-
What's-
Isn't the line supposed to be equal on both sides when you put the line up?
We make the line to make both teams equally attractive,
So how can you have an opinion?
because there's more to it than just my opinion, right?
I'm just curious. Jimmy
And
knows.
those
Jimmy
guys, Chris,
knows
you
where
know.
I'm coming from.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
well, don't you have I'm thinking you cited this. I think that when you run a book, especially the size that Jay is running for years, you do have to stay in line with the rest of the market.
Why?
Well, otherwise you're going to get nailed on one side so bad, and you do have, a lot of people actually have bosses. You and I do not. But so we have to answer to somebody. If we lose $3 million to this bet this week, we could be on the carpet to get fired. So, and I think Jay always had a boss when he worked over
but
there.
who's to say that the line is right, that you have to use that line? Who's to say it's right?
well, the money coming in really dictates the line.
No, but
Really,
you're putting up the number before the money comes in.
that's correct.
So
And
who-
anticipation
that line is
of that
supposed-
money.
Yeah,
Yes.
but that line is supposed to be right. You're
It-
putting up
it's-
the lines, not the people that bet it make it right. You're supposed to make it right. That number's supposed to be
I wish
right.
it was that simple. It's not that simple. Yeah. But Jim's right. If let's just say we take this Chiefs game, or we really like the Chiefs and we're going to make it 4 when everybody else is 3.5, and we just continue to take money on Houston, right? And when Houston wins or covers, and my bosses read in the newspaper, online, how the books really crush it on this game, and we tell them that we lost, a healthy 6 figures on this game, you have some explaining to do.
What I'm trying to
I
say,
like the Chiefs is not going to go, okay?
What I'm trying to say, so in other words, you think when you get that line is right. Is that what you're saying?
Say that again?
When you get the line, you say you're thinking that line is right.
We think that line will hopefully attract equal action on both sides, yes. But it never happens.
But it never does.
Right.
No.
So in other words, you're saying that line is right.
Well, we will have certain opinions, going back to your point. If everybody's moving to, let's just say, we feel that the line is going to 4, right? And the market's at 3.5, and we can just feel it based off the type of play that we're getting in, the type of tickets that we're seeing. We might go to 4 before others.
You know what
But we're not gonna hold a position because of an opinion.
You know what the biggest problem has become with the line right now? Jimmy and he knows how backfire I go. Right now, the line is made by a machine and it's made by analytics. Am I right or wrong?
You're partly correct, okay? And not
Okay.
eventually it's going to be AI, yes, but right now the human factor is alive and well.
But what I'm trying to say is the line is made by analytics nowadays and it's made by a computer. And who's betting it are humans. Am I
It's
right
a
or
human
wrong?
versus the computer.
Okay, now 30 years ago, 25 years ago, the line was made by humans and it was being bet by humans.
We don't have any Bob Martins anymore,
Yeah, it was
guys.
human versus human. Now it's
Well,
human versus machine.
Wait, Jimmy, even when Roxy was making the line, when Roxy was putting up the line, it was made by humans and it was being bet by humans. That's why it was so much easier to book back then than it is now. Like you say, you had a horrible October. You know, how many Octobers have you had in the last 30 years that you've had this year? Not very many of them, I would bet.
Never.
Okay.
Oh.
Lou, go ahead.
That's why
Lou.
I'm trying to say that's the difference nowadays from booking than it was 30, 25 years ago.
I can't speak to booking, I can speak to betting, okay? And so, yeah, we're seeing AI a lot more, so how am I gonna attack them? I'm gonna get them where they're soft, and where are they soft? In live betting, because those matriculations and all that math does not allow them to move the number too drastically, and live betting is where you gotta hit those boys on the underbelly. It works great, it works great. We didn't have live betting 30 years
But
ago,
let me ask you
but
this.
that's the answer in my
Let me ask you
position.
this. Are you finding it easier now to bet now than it was 20 years ago?
No, it's just, I could bet when I was in diapers, I could bet.
No, but I'm saying, are you finding it softer to bet now than it was 20, 25 years
Oh,
ago?
yeah, softer. No, I'm not. I have to do more work in order to earn.
In
Jim.
other words,
Hey Lou, was it legal to bet?
Hey, give us,
I'm not sure how to answer that question.
Jim. Give me your final thoughts on this, and we're
Crawl
gonna
to
move
the
on
corner.
because we could be here all day on this.
First of all, the bookmaking business, and I'm not on the bookmaking side, but what I see, and I didn't come from this era, and neither did you. The proposition betting today has dominated the industry, especially with FanDuel and DraftKings and these other companies going crazy with offering propositions. And the kids, the younger generation, seems to be in love with betting propositions. Over and under on Herbert, or over and under on Herbert. First touchdown, only touchdown. We never had that years ago. We never had live betting. We barely had totals to bet on. We barely had live betting, or even halftime betting. So over the last 30, 40 years, we've been both doing this 60 years. So it's all changed. How has that changed your business?
Yeah. You remember, Jimmy?
Hang on, because we got to wrap up the show. We can talk about this because your phone's about ready to die. And Ray, you want to make a quick comment on it? Go ahead quickly because we got to roll.
Proposition betting is absolutely taken over, and I just think that it's. I got a guy that I know that lives in my building, and that's all he does is, and he's a Chinese emergency room medical doctor. He just bets live over props. It's just amazing where this young money is going. It's wild, man, and it's all props, and it's just.
It's a great question. I love the topic and the question. We could do a whole show on this, really. We
Yeah, we
probably
should.
should because it's a great topic. and they're great questions that we could dive into and really get into some good conversations with it. So maybe we need to schedule that sometime to do that, you know, and maybe we can get Jay back here and we can talk about that. Everybody out there have a Merry Christmas. We will be back next Thursday, the day after Christmas, December 26th, with E.R. Renning and Scott Kellen will be joining the panel. But first, let's give a round of applause to Jay Kornegay and Lou Finnochiaro for joining our show today. And obviously, the man here next to me, Jim Feist. My name's Tommy Canale. We will see you guys next week. Good luck on your bets, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. It was great having you here. Thank you.
Thanks, Tommy. Thank you.